This is the Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, Bo Cook from Loan Market, BTZD, the official apparel partner of the Paracave Podcast, and the Parramatta Times, the official media partner of the Paracave Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
All right, welcome back to the Weekend Sports Wrap. So you're in the second part of the show with Duckman, with Lewis, and with our special guest, Troy Warner from the Paracave Podcast. We're doing a bit of a wrap and review of what's happened this year in rugby league this week. So we're going to be chatting about everything that's happened, highlights, who we think some of the good players were, who some of the outstanding players were, and new talents that come through we weren't too sure of or didn't know much about, what we think might happen next year, and some of the good stuff that's happened throughout the year too. Troy, how are you going tonight?
Going fantastic, Duckman and Lewis, even though there was no rugby league played this weekend at all. But there's still plenty of rugby league news around. For us rugby league fans, it's almost like Christmas Eve tonight because 11 a.m. tomorrow morning, the NRL draw for 2024 comes out. So pretty excited about that one to see where all the games are going to be played, especially myself being a Parramatta fan, seeing where all those games have been played. We've had a few leaks across the week as to a few rounds and games and the round one schedule as well. But look, still a massive week in news for rugby league, which I'm sure we'll talk about. There's it's still going on, even though it's off season.
Yeah, 100%. So old Peter V'landys looked really happy that the leagues came out about the rugby league draw too. Said, I'm going to change it. Oh, take your bat and ball and go home crying. Seriously, just calm down a couple of levels. They're not going to change it much, are they? I didn't see anything that needed changing. I know the Dragons are pumping it already that we're going to miss out on Magic Round. Someone's got to miss out. So unfortunately, it's your turn this time.
Yeah, look, unfortunately, this year at Magic Round, which they are saying will fall in round 11 next year, next May, the Dragons will get the 2 points for the bye. With the uneven amount of teams in the competition, then, as you said, someone's got to miss out. Last year it was the Newcastle Knights. Oh, sorry, this year it was Newcastle Knights, and next year it's the Dragons. So, but anyway, we do have a sort of a leaked lineup. It's Parramatta versus Melbourne, which is no good for Parramatta fans because they think back to 2019 where Melbourne carved us up about 64-12. So, hoping that doesn't reoccur. Manly versus Brisbane, Canterbury versus Canberra, West Tigers versus Dolphins, North Queensland versus South Sydney, Cronulla versus Sydney Roosters, Warriors versus Penrith Panthers, and Gold Coast versus Newcastle. So that was one of the leaks that came out. We also have the Anzac Day games as well. There's going to be 3 games this year apparently played on Anzac Day. Obviously, we'll still have the traditional Dragons versus Roosters game to be played at Allianz Stadium. But the New Zealand Warriors play the Gold Coast Titans over in New Zealand in the opening round of round 8, which is the Anzac round. Usually they play the Melbourne Storm in Melbourne. Now, they were trying to lobby to play that game over in New Zealand, but however, they've got the Titans going over there for a game, and the Storm will still have their Anzac Day game against South Sydney at Amy Park as well. So there's 3 games at least on Anzac Day, which is pretty much a feast for rugby league fans. And the good news for the women's side of rugby league, the Origin Series has gone to a 3-game Origin Series in 2024. This year it was only 2-game series, and I think on aggregate Queensland won by 9 points or something like that. So it is great news that the Women's Origin series has gone to 3 games. There will be no expansion at least until 2025, so still the same amount of 10 teams in the competition. Maybe 2025 there may be a few more.
Yeah, so I'd be thinking 2025. You've got to be looking. I think jumping from 10 to 16 is way too big, even though most of the other clubs are fielding sides. 10 to 14, that's achievable.
Yeah, or even to 12
and sustainable. Yeah, well, yeah, another couple of sides. So surely be looking at Penrith. So Penrith have got sides in everything. They're winning the Tasha Gale Cup, which is the under 19s women's. Is that the level it is, Lewis?
I believe so.
Yeah. So I think that's what it is. So won the Tasha Gale. Pretty sure I won it again this year. Very good player. So I don't know what other side you'd pull in. So who would you think would drop in as the extra side if you're looking at one to go to 12, Troy?
I think possibly the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. They might be interested in having a team in the competition as well. As you mentioned, Penrith, obviously, they're probably looking towards that maybe sometime in the future. Also, the South Sydney Rabbitohs as well. I think they'll probably be 3 of the sides that be looking to get a side in the NRLW competition. And speaking of NRLW, the All-Stars fixture that we see at the start of the year has been named as being on the 16th of February at Queensland Country Bank Stadium as well. So both the NRLW players and the NRL players will be in that game up at Queensland Country Bank, which is a great game for the cultures that are involved in that game, the Maoris and the Indigenous All-Stars as well. They put on a great show, and also for rugby league fans in general, because it's one of the first games that we see of the year.
Yeah, I reckon it might be time to get a GoFundMe page for that one and the Las Vegas thing, so we'll see if we can get some sort of cross-collaboration. So go from that straight to the Las Vegas trip. That might be good. So could you imagine what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? So that'll be interesting. If that even happens, I doubt it will. Should I run a GoFundMe page? Hit me up, 0434 440 553.
Times 2. Times 2. I'll come with you and we'll collaborate.
Yeah. Pretty sure Lewis might need to do some educational research for the Department of Education here in his full-time role as well. So I can always do things that might be safety-related up there at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. It's got a lot of stuff to do up at Townsville and have neglected it this year, unfortunately, due to some travel restrictions. So could be due for a visit around that time next year, very conveniently.
Also, Origin number 2 next year has been named as being played at the MCG in Melbourne, and tickets are on sale for that one now as well. So there you go, Origin 2 in Melbourne, and I think New South Wales get the first game and Queensland get the third game. So a little bit interesting there that they've taken it to the MCG. Obviously, they're going to try and get 100,000 people there, but I'm not a fan of rugby league being played on a round field. So for the spectators anyway, you're a bit further away from the action, but if you're watching it on TV, well then definitely it's a great spectacle. And the atmosphere, I guess, probably adds to that being so far away.
But don't you think it might be also the fact that you're taking it essentially to a Queensland-style ground? Most of those players play Queensland and they play for Melbourne.
Yeah, that's true as well. Traditionally, the Melbourne Storm have supplied a lot of Queensland rugby league players over the years, and I think these days, probably with Cameron Smith retired, I think they've only got, Harry Grant, Cameron Munster, that I can think of off the top of my head at the moment, that play for Queensland. So, look, I think it doesn't really matter. I guess they're trying to get there's no point in... They're not trying to get an expansion side in there because they've already got the Melbourne Storm. But I guess they're trying to go for a dollar figure and, as I said, try and get that 100,000 into the MCG.
Yeah, it's all revenue and commercial for sure. So touching into Melbourne, if you can tap Melbourne as really tap into Melbourne, probably open up as many, maybe more commercial opportunities than you get in Sydney, because Sydney have a little bit more diversity. Melbourne's very strong in football or AFL. Sydney try to branch out in every area ever, and things don't get done properly now, as we're starting to see. We'll kick on to another thing. So I called it the big news story of the week. So this one's been bubbling away for a little while. So Raymond Faitala-Mariner is told to stand down through the week at the Bulldogs, so wasn't required to train. What do we take out of that? And then, number one, I had the meeting with Gus yesterday, and someone filmed it. So we don't know who filmed it, but I guarantee you, so the rumour is that people are saying, what, did Gus let everyone know? Gus might have actually let the media know. I don't know. So, but the perception is that Raymond Faitala-Mariner's manager let everyone know. So what happened there? So what do we think's happened? Lewis thinks he's probably not required now. He's probably going to need to move on. So something like that has happened. So are we going to see him move on? If he does, where are we looking at? Surely Tigers are up the top of that list. They're looking for someone that's a second row, like what he can do, and he'd be the guy.
Yeah, look, it's a very strange situation, this one, I think, because Raymond is the club captain at the Bulldogs, and it probably doesn't seem like he's being treated that well there. I don't know. Obviously not in the inner circle of the Bulldogs and don't know what's going on off the field there. So I really don't know why he and the Bulldogs are in this situation. And I've been following today on Twitter Gus Gould and his comments about that, and saying that he's got all the CCTV footage of who took the photo and leaked it to the media, and they'll be speaking to him and all this and that. But when you're in a public place like that, well, then I guess it's anybody who can take a picture these days. But he also said, you know, should I let everyone know where my schedule is? I said, well, you can probably do that, but just tell them where you're not going. Just tell them somewhere else, and then you put them off the scent. So I don't know, but it's a strange situation. But in terms of where he will end up, well then, yeah, obviously it'd be the usual suspects that are been named this year as to player signings, and that's obviously the Tigers and the Dragons. I don't think he'll end up at the Roosters. They seem to want to try and sign everyone, but I don't think he'll end up there. But certainly he'll probably have to leave the club, because the Bulldogs this week added 4 new players to their side. So Kurt Mann and Jake Turpin amongst two of those signings. So it'll be interesting how it goes.
I'll throw out another one, Gold Coast, because got Des Hasler there. He was there when Des Hasler was there, I'm pretty sure. So did he work well when Des was there? And do you reckon Des would want him in Gold Coast? Yeah,
potentially. That's a potential signing up there. Add a little bit of depth up there. I think it came out today that David Fifita's got a clause in his contract that he can get out of it or something like that. So that's an interesting story there as well. But yeah, definitely he wouldn't be that expensive, I guess. And as you said, he has worked under Des before, so he knows what he's like as a player. So yeah, I mean, add a bit of depth, and it just depends on whether he wants to move into state or stay in New South Wales.
Yeah, well, that's what I definitely think it is. So I know if I was personally up there, if that was me, I would seriously look at West Tigers. The reason why, the example I'll throw out is Mark Carroll. He was cruising along at Penrith. He was probably playing first grade, fringe first grade player, left Penrith, missed out on winning grand finals, went to the Rabbitohs in the Kangaroo squad. Still won comps down the track, ended up winning comps. We did it with Manly and stuff, but he moved on for better opportunities. If he stayed at Penrith, his career was going to end up being him not being a first-grade footballer. So will he need to do that? He's going to need to do that by the look of it. So where's that going to be best? Well, Mark Carroll went to a side that wasn't firing too good and did a good job with that side. So being the Rabbitohs, and went on the 1990 Kangaroo tour. So we'll see where that one goes eventually. So let's have a look at some of the highlights of the year. So we all know Panthers won the Premiership, Knights won the NRLW. So what are some of the highlights you can take out of it this year, Troy, from the NRL? Who were some of your star players, and who were some of the guys you would have thought maybe do a little bit better? Any surprise packets that have come out of the blue you didn't expect to see?
Yeah, look, I think I guess you could call it the re-emergence of the New Zealand Warriors during this year was probably a big one. They sort of slid under the radar at the start of the year with everyone there. We're having a new coach, Andrew Webster, who's just signed on again for another 5 years, so that's a credit to his coaching for this year. And I guess they slowly chipped away at the season and won games, and during that origin period they won games when the other sides had their best players out, and then they started really getting a momentum happening, especially at home games as well. They started selling out stadiums in New Zealand, and they got that support of the whole country. Even when the All Blacks were in the Rugby World Cup, the New Zealand Warriors in Rugby League still had that massive following in the finals time when it was. So I think it was great to see them, and they were led by Sean Johnson, who had a vintage season once again, probably taking him back to 2011 when the Warriors made the grand final as well. So his best season in a long time. So that was one highlight. I guess the new lease of life at Brisbane as well. They were up the top of the ladder for most of the season, and they only just fell short of getting that minor premiership, which Penrith got. But I guess it was the combination of Reece Walsh at the back. We saw his best potential this year. He played Origin this year as well for Queensland. He had a few moments throughout the year which he probably regrets, but he's learnt from those, and next year I don't think we'll see those again. But certainly his speed at the back was a massive factor for the Broncos and their charge to the grand final as well this year. In terms, I guess you can't go past the Panthers as well. I mean, a three-peat hasn't been achieved in 40 years since Parramatta did it. So to win in this era of rugby league as well, the NRL era, it's pretty amazing, as we know that the NRL is the toughest competition in the world. So to do it 3 years in a row and to look like they've pretty sort of done it comfortably, congratulations and hats off to them. It'll be interesting to see how they go next year. They've lost another couple of players from their premiership winning teams. We all see that the success of teams, they end up losing players. So it'll be interesting. We all thought that maybe this year without Api Coruscant and Viliame Kikau that maybe they might struggle a little bit, but obviously they didn't. Other players stepped up, and I think next year will be the same. More players will step up again and fill the void of Stephen Crichton and Spencer Leniu. So that was great to see as well. Unfortunately, New South Wales didn't win the State of Origin series, so that was a little bit of a low light, I guess. Struggled again in the Origin series. Hopefully next year with a new coach, which looks like to be Michael Maguire, hopefully there's a new lease of life and maybe some new players in that side, some new blood. And one of the excitement machines out of that was Bradman Best when he made his debut in that. He played in that Origin game, and then he took that back to Newcastle and also helped them on their run into the finals as well. So there's a few off the top of my head. What about yours?
Yeah, so I'd be thinking straight off the bat, so players stand out for consistency. Probably be looking at Reynolds. So, all right, so I'll start at the top. Nathan Cleary, I was having a Nathan Cleary season. Very good, dominating all the stuff. Didn't quite dominate State of Origin again, so that's something he needs to work on going forward. The grand final, Andrew Johns even said what Nathan Cleary did in the grand finals last 20 minutes. He won the game. Penrith lost. Penrith had lost, and he'd won the game. He won the game, and his MCL looks like it's cooked. And he basically did it without his major playmaker inside him. So he did it with a guy that was playing a different style, and that different style got that going. Jack Cogger there too. So outside that, Reynolds helped get Brisbane to where they were. He did it last year, did it again this year. Reece Walsh was outstanding. So without him, the Broncos, I don't think they make the grand final. As his electrifying running at the back and that. Ezra Mam had a pretty good year. I didn't notice too much what Ezra Mam did. The grand final, he pinned himself on the wall those 3 tries. But he had it in him all the time, I think. But in the grand final, he did like what Cameron Munster did in his first State of Origin game. He's put himself up in the limelight. He's going to be outstanding. Players coming through to super talented. Isaiah Katoa, can't really look too much past him. So what he did this year with the Dolphins, they came out of the blue. So I think they get a plus, not an A plus. Maybe they probably get like a B plus. Some people said, I'd probably get like a C minus because it weren't that good. They had a completely new squad, right? So guys they expected to aim up weren't there to do it, unfortunately. So consistently, these guys are building for the future. That was good. In the NRLW, Gold Coast Titans super happy with what they did, getting the team to the grand final. So that was a massive deal for the whole club to get their first grand final. They really slid under the radar because everyone thought it was going to be the Roosters and the Knights, and they just proved that you just get the job done consistently, you'll achieve massive things. So they did that with not a rubbish team, not a superstar team either, but they did it with like probably a slightly better of an average team and just did it quietly. Who disappointed? West Tigers probably disappointed. I thought they were going to do a lot better than what they did this year. So I was surprised there. I don't know what that looks like going forward. I think they're going to have a couple of tough years if they can't. They've got to pick up some more decent players, but they're not going to get the Nathan Clearys. They're not. They might be able to get Jerome Luai, so that'd be interesting. But they've got to try to get the players at the level 2 tier players. So these guys. So this guy would be a good start. Mariner Fatala Mariner. I get him. That's a good start in the right direction. You probably need another 6 of him. So not just second rowers and props. You want a bit of a spread across the field. So get some guys enthusiastic, good players at other clubs. Like Penrith did back in the day when they got Peter Kelly and Chris Mortimer. So those sorts of guys. What's going to happen next year? I think Canberra are going to be a lot better. Stephen Crichton's going to be a massive loss for Penrith. I don't think Penrith will make the grand final. He will be replaced, but he'll be hard to replace all the bits and pieces he does because he kicks as well. It is really Penrith's third playmaker, potentially 4th playmaker if you look with Jack Cogger as well. It's just the arsenal that Penrith had this year is nearly undeniable they were going to be there or thereabouts. So to only have two guys, they're going to have a new half next year from England who's pretty good too. What I got told is a backup for Cleary. But I think Penrith will look different. I think we'll have a different grand final next year. I don't think Penrith will make it. I'm not too sure, so pretty open to what's going to happen. I think New South Wales, they need to name Maguire. Seriously, what's going on with that? Why do they just keep pushing it back? What, are they waiting until the 32nd of never or something? So
who knows? I think they might be just waiting to see what New Zealand Rugby League want to do and what Canberra Rugby League want to do and what Michael Maguire wants to do, whether he wants to do all 3 jobs or just the New South Wales job. But you mentioned the Dolphins there before, and just another highlight was Jermaine Osako as well. He had an outstanding season in the Dolphins side. He got top, I think, point scorer this year, and he's had a couple of clubs over the last couple of years, and he forced his way back into the New Zealand side. And also on the Dolphins next year, they'll get Herbie Farnworth and Tom Flegler as well from the Broncos. So that's a big gains for them. So they're very good pickups. Yeah, definitely. They'll be a lot more better for the run in 2023, and that experience of the grand final from Herbie and Tom will benefit the Dolphins, no doubt. Yeah, so I think when Christian Wolf takes over in 2024, we'll see an influx of more Kiwi players come into the team too, from when he was in New Zealand, coaching the New Zealand team and that as well. That is a massive bonus to them. So Christian Wolf is a good coach. He shouldn't be underrated, and I'm interested to see how he goes. So who do you think some of the stars were this year and some of your highlights?
Look, to me, I have, I'm a little bit selfish here because as a Queenslander, I had a great highlight package. Yeah. Winning Origin 1 in New South Wales, amazing. Yeah. To be able to beat New South Wales, I did. But to be honest, I expected it to be a tougher game, and then you see guys like Cleary who clearly are amazing for Penrith. They just struggle to take it up that next level. In fact, the best game I've seen New South Wales play was Game 3. The halves combination was so much better. They looked dangerous. They looked deadly. And I feel like Moses really, really played a massive role in there. And my biggest disappointment this year was seeing Parramatta the way they did, because Parramatta the year before, last year, were a really strong team. Now, I'm not a big Para fan, but a lot of my family is. And, you know, to see a team that had done so well the year before make the grand final, not even come close this year, that was disappointing. But as a Broncos supporter since 1988, I can tell you this last run of losses was quite horrific. So to see us finally bounce back and see this new combination, it was great. I was at the grand final, was lucky to be there, rode the highs, rode the lows. But look, I think next year we'll bounce back stronger than ever. I think we're better for this loss, and we're coming for that premiership.
Yeah. So you didn't think of doing like what any of the Canberra Raiders fans did after Penrith won the comp in 91 and tried to rob the Leagues Club or anything like that?
Nah, it's not worth it. But look, Penrith will win 3 premierships now, and then we won't see them for another 40 years win another one, so it's all right.
I like the sounds of that, but look, I agree with you, Lewis. Parramatta were a major disappointment this year, and has been a big fan seeing them in the grand final in 2022, and then they just couldn't get it right this year. There was a lot of off-field dramas and on-field dramas, discipline as well, which led to suspensions, injuries as well. So coaching rotations as well from the bench as well, that played a part. So look, I really hope they can bounce back next year and definitely make the 8. I think Canterbury will be up there next year. I think they may finish about 9th or 10th. Or I don't know if they'll make the 8, but they'll certainly have a few more new players in their side. And I think the Dolphins, they'll improve in their position as well.
Mm. Yeah. So I think my biggest surprise overall out of all teams, like Parramatta dropped out. I'm not surprised they missed the top 8. I just thought they lost a couple of key players this year, and that was going to hurt them. The biggest surprise was Souths. They really should have been in the top 4.
They were disappointing, though.
They should have been in the top 4. And the thing is, their guys are getting old, right?
Well, they are, but I don't look. They've been trying this Latrell Mitchell at fullback combination for a couple of years now. Is it really working? I look at the games and I look at fullbacks all around the competition, and they hang back. They play as last man. They're in there when they need to be, but half the time they kick the ball back there and Latrell's nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, he wants to play like a centre.
He is a centre. He's not a fullback. He's not a natural fullback. When is South Sydney going to realise, hey, let's actually just get a real fullback, put him in the back line, put Latrell back in the centre, and let's go forward, because South was disappointing as well this year.
Do you swap Jack Whiten and Latrell around then, or?
Yeah, I would.
Do you put Jack Whiten at fullback?
Yeah, why not?
Number 14, mate, eh? So Jack Whiten, seriously, like...
He'll be a starting player
I would put him on the bench. You reckon? So where? But you know who I'd have at fullback at Souths? Alex Johnston. But you're going to stop him from scoring as many tries because he's going to be busier. So if he plays fullback, he'll be busier. So you can have a look what you want to try to move around.
You've got to try something, though, because this year their experiment failed.
Yeah.
So they didn't go forward.
I think they were hoping Latrell would be like another Greg Inglis, and it didn't work. So,
and just a shout out to Latrell and his family. Our thoughts are with him. It was reported during the last couple of days that his cousin passed away in a tragic car accident. So our thoughts go out to Latrell and his family.
Yeah, it's not good at all. So whenever anything like that happens, it's always very bad. So yeah, talking from a football point of view, though, I like Latrell. So, and I'll talk about another guy too, Matt Burton. So I think Matt Burton was brought up today in the Telegraph. I agree with this as well. But he got a fairly big pump and he got pushed early into 5'8" at the Bulldogs. I expected him to be next Laurie Daly, Brad Fittler, something like that, because he did such a good job at Penrith. He did it without the pressure of having to be the number one guy at Penrith. He did it, and they had Stephen Crichton, they had Jerome Luai, they had Nathan Cleary. So it wasn't like a shortage of guys when Matt Burton was at Penrith to do that. At the Bulldogs, they're all standing around, what are you going to do, Matt? So I think they've loaded him up with too much. Dropping him back in the centres again might actually be good for him. Give him some freedom, you'll actually get better bang for your buck out of what he does.
Yeah, no, that's true. As you said, he put him in at 5'8", and it's basically like, here you go, mate, it's your team. So, yeah, you give him that responsibility, then there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders. But now, as you suggested, maybe he goes back to the centres. He won a competition with Penrith in there in 2021. With Stephen Crichton was on the wing, I think, in that game. But if that would be a pretty good combination for the centres for the Bulldogs, and then you've got Josh Addo-Carr on the wing as well. So, that'd be a pretty good combination on that side of or basically centre combination. But then you've got the signing from the Gold Coast Titans at the end of the year there, the middle of the year.
Toby Sexton.
Yeah, he can be the halfback. He is a first-grade halfback. But
I think he'll be the man. I honestly think now, the longer it's gone and Jerome Luai hasn't done anything, I think he's going to end up at the Bulldogs. I think that's the pathway's looking like that. I keep telling Roosters fans, mate, it's a done deal. They are panicking. They go, they'll never sign that. And by the way, Trent Robinson, he's gone. That's why they signed Justin Holbrook. He's got about another year. If he doesn't have a good year, he's gone. They're like, I'm gonna write a letter. Like, you're gonna do your best, mate. So whatever. They're panicking. I think that's the top of the list. Seriously, Jerome Luai is likely probably to end up at the Bulldogs unless he really wants money, and he'll go to the Tigers or Dragons if that's what he really wants.
Yeah, I think he'll end up at the Bulldogs too, just quietly, but I'm not too sure with all this big signing spree that they've just had, signing those 4 players, but only time will tell whether he wants to go there for less money than what other clubs will offer him. I think Shane Flanagan, the new Dragons coach for 2024, has thought maybe, he could be a good fit at St George. Obviously, Benji hasn't said anything in his first week of training yet about Jerome Luai, but look, the Bulldogs, they've got Carl Oloapu as a 5'8" as well. I think he's battling an injury at the moment. I'm not too sure what it is, but it's quite serious, but I think he is back either at the end of pre-season or early next year. So he could slot into your 5'8", and then Sexton can be your halfback, and then Burton can go back to the centres.
Yeah, and he was New South Wales 5'8" this year as well, wasn't he? He was in New South Wales extended squad. Kalalapu, pretty sure he was.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that one, to be honest.
Yeah. So I know. So I haven't looked something Daily Telegraph put out too. So I want to know first off, who's Travis Mean, the guy that wrote this article? Not sure he watched any rugby league games this year because he said for next year Melbourne talking about the spines of the team. So rates Melbourne's as the highest, which is fair. He's put Pappenhausen at fullback again. Surely you're looking at Nick Meaney fullback because Pappenhausen injured. At the moment, the problem you got is Ryan Pappenhausen. I think after his last injury, he now has a confidence problem. So. He's an outstanding player. He's going to have to come back slowly again because he's going to have his mental things in his head.
So I think he's one injury away from retirement, to be honest.
Well, yeah, he's one bad injury away from retirement, and he's had 2 bad ones in a row. So shattered patella and all that stuff happened to his knee was bad. His leg, I don't know. That's not good. So he'll have these things in his head now. I think that takes him out of being a bit of a strike weapon. The funny thing, look down Canberra's list, absolutely buried Canberra hit his guy. So he's given them a D, sat him at the bottom of the table. He's not a big fan of Sebastian Chris or Xavier Savage. So them 2 bottles covered either. So what do you think? What do we think of Canberra actually? Because the last couple of years they've been getting into the 8 or just missing the 8, and they've actually been pretty good. I'd say I think they've been punching above their weight. Are they really at the level they're at? Is that where they're really at now? They're a top 8 side or fringe top 8 side, or are they potentially better than that? Like they weren't that far away from a grand final, really. If they I forget who they played the first week, but if they had won their game, they actually would have had a decent draw. So it dropped in nicely for them in the finals, but they couldn't get over the first one.
Yeah, I think they lost to Newcastle this year up in Newcastle. Week 1 of the finals this year. They made week 2 of the finals last year, knocked out by Parramatta. But Canberra, they're probably traditional slow starters of a competition. They don't set the world on fire, and they get their groove and they slowly get into the games. And I think 2022 they lost games by close margins, but still managed to scrape into the 8. And this year they won games by close margins, so it was the reverse. I think they're probably a fringe top 8 side, and we saw how competitive this year was in the NRL, so it's going to be a lot of jostling for spots into that top 8 next year, but I think they're probably a fringe top 8. They've lost Jack Whiten, Jared Croker has retired as well, so there's a couple of key players that have retired or moved on, so it'll be interesting to see how they fill those voids.
Yeah. I'm going to throw out 3 big news stories. We're pretty much done with what we got there for league at the moment for this year, so we're going to try to keep talking some rugby league with some former greats and that over the summer period to keep people interested in the stories of guys who used to play. I'm going to throw out 3 big headlines. I'll come up with the headlines myself here. So, all right, the 18th NRL club, I'm going to ask you first, then I'll ask Lewis, and then I'll go to mine myself. 18th NRL club is going to be who, Troy?
Western Reds.
18th NRL club's going to be who?
It should be the Western Reds. I'm going to agree with Troy on this one.
Yeah, well, I reckon that the Queensland government backed it in so hard, I think it'll be PNG. I think that's going to happen over the top of Western Reds, unfortunately. All right, the coach of the 18th team is going to be who, Troy?
Oh, good question. Justin Holbrook.
Justin Holbrook, that's a good call. So I would have thought he might hang it. Yeah, interesting. So if that one comes off,
Shane Flanagan's come back, Des Hasler's come back. I mean, there's always Jeff Tuvey out there as well, but Justin Holbrook's just recently been sacked by the Titans, so I'd go him. Yep,
18th
Wayne Bennett.
Yeah, I reckon if it's a Papua New Guinea side, I think it'll be Wayne Bennett because they resonate with him. If it was Papua New Guinea side and it wasn't Wayne Bennett, it'd be Adrian Lamb. So they're the options. If it was a Perth side, I think it could be Justin Holbrook. I think if it's anyone else outside of PNG, it won't be Wayne Bennett.
Look, I think it'll be silly.
Wayne Bennett, people want Wayne Bennett involved because of his experience and that as like some sort of director or whatever. But if PNG get in, they're going to go 100% all emotion, get everything in that's got anything to do with promotion and firing them up and Queenslanders and all that stuff.
Don't forget too that Craig Bellamy, this is his last year apparently at Melbourne as well, 2024. He may want a new challenge for 1 or 2 years at a new franchise, like his former mentor Wayne Bennett. So you never know, Craig Bellamy might be an option.
Well, yeah, it could 100% be up for that. So I forgot completely about that. And the third one is, who does Jerome Luai sign for? Or Jerome Luai signs for who?
I've said it all along. I just think the Penrith connection at the Bulldogs will get him over the line there. We haven't heard anything about whether the Bulldogs are chasing him or not at the moment, so it's going to be interesting to see where he does end up. But I just think that Penrith connection, he'll end up at the Bulldogs.
Yeah. Who do you think he's going to sign for, Lewis?
Oh, look, I'm going to agree again with Troy. I think he's going to the Dogs.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw another one out there and set up what it might be Bulldogs for. I reckon Jerome Luai signs for Gold Coast.
Oh, interesting.
So he's just given too many indications he doesn't want anything to do with Penrith at the moment. So it's probably Bulldogs up the top of that list. I think Des Hasler's shrewd enough to realise if we can make things happen, I've got to get this guy. I want to win a premiership. So might be a good foil for Foran. So get him in, get that moving around, get the team moving around.
See how that works because, as you just said, you got Kieran Foran up there. He played hooker for New Zealand just recently in the Pacific Championship. So you've also got AJ Brimson and you've got Jaden Campbell as well, fighting it out for that fullback spot. So maybe one of them gets the fullback spot, one of them gets a 14 spot, and then you got Kieran Foran who will probably get the 6 spot. So how many years Kieran's got, who knows, but whether Jaden or AJ want to play 5'8" as well. I think fullback's their best position, but just have to wait and see.
Definitely we'll get a better idea. So we'll know if he doesn't sign for Gold Coast. We'll know early. Well, we'll know early if Des Hasler wants that to happen, because he'll start to draft things in a way. You'll start to see where these two young fullbacks are playing, and then we'll work out what happens with Kieran Foran. I think he would be a good fit there, because Kieran Foran's literally got like maybe 2 years left in his body. He's pretty pumped, right? So like Sean Johnson is as well. Troy, it's been fabulous as always again this week. What do you got coming up this week in the Paracade podcast for everybody that's out there listening at the moment?
Well, at the moment, I have the interview with Craig Greenhill running until Thursday. So the first man who got sent off in State of Origin, unfortunately, he holds that mantle. So he talks about that in the podcast. He also talks about his great mate who unfortunately is no longer with us, and that's Paul Green as well. So a little bit emotional talk about that as well. And just his general footy career at Penrith and the Sharks as well. And going to do a live reaction podcast chat about the NRL draw coming out tomorrow. So that's 11 a.m. So I'll do a podcast about that as well. So be interesting to see all the games, as I said before, for myself being a Para fan, seeing who we're playing, where we're playing them, and then putting in that annual leave so I can make sure I can get to those games.
Yeah, that's right. So I've heard some of the snippets too you did with the Craig Greenhill interview about when he got sent off and that, and it's pretty good so far. So it all sounds good. I've got to listen to the whole thing, then take it all in. So, and he was a good pickup too, and Penrith got him, had nicknamed Knuckles, and yeah, who it was, had nicknamed Knuckles, and he got knocked out, and
well, he also talks about how he got that nickname as well, and a funny listener question as well. And actually, just thinking of what you were planning on doing over the summer, talking to some ex-players, I actually watched a classic game from 1986 on Fox League at the moment. They've got a number of great games from each year, and 1986 featured, and it was Parramatta and South Sydney. And two players that you constantly talk about, Neil Baker and Bronco DeJura, were playing in that game as well. So it was good to see them.
I want to try to get them both on.
Good to see
them.
How
good would that be to get them both on? Oh, yeah, for sure. So I want to get them on. Neil Baker, 100% got to chat to him, and Bronco DeJura. So I've got to speak to both of them. They're up on the list. Jeff Bagnall, who else? Someone else I want to know. Can't remember who it is off the top of my head. Someone that had some pie eating records. I want to invite them in and take them on, throw down the challenge of eating as many pies as we can in 5 minutes or something. So probably be about 6 or 7 pies.
I remember way back in the day it was Arthur Beetson. He had the pie eating record, I think. He was known to love a good pie, but maybe the listeners could text in and see who they want us to have a chat to.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Do that. 0434 440 553, and we'll take on everything you say, and we'll try to make it all happen. Troy, thanks for your time, and we will have a chat again in the upcoming weeks. Have a good break. We'll get back in touch with you again soon, and we'll let you know when we get some of these interviews happening.
No worries. Thank you very much for the season 2023, and look forward to some interviews coming up, and also hopefully joining you again in 2024. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
It's always been a pleasure and a lot of fun. So I'll chat to you again shortly, Troy.
Thanks, Duckman.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracade Podcast. See you next time.